Welcome to this week's Follow Up Friday. Hope you've had an amazing week, lots going on, and of course we got another week and then we've got a bank holiday coming up as well, so a little bit of something to look forward to. What I was going to focus on today though is looking at some relevant things to do with follow-ups, particularly now we're getting towards September. In my experience, there are certain times of the year where you need to be selling at your strongest, because they're the times where people are focused on new sales, on buying things in particular, so purchasing services or goods, and they really come into their fore come September, October, November. And it's no coincidence that most trade shows are in September and October, and then we move into the following year and you find really good sales times in March, April, May, and of course in March and April you also see shows as well. Again, it's focusing around those towards your prospecting and your following up. There are now some shows coming up. People are actually getting back out and about again, and I know the NEC is starting to have those B2B shows coming on. They're a good time to do some following up and also to do some prospecting as well. So, do you need to go to those shows? Potentially yes, if you can get to them, why not? But also you can use those show guides, and you can find them online, to look at, are any of the prospects you're aiming to sell to, are they exhibiting at any of those shows? And if they are, it gives you an excuse to keep the follow-up process going, because you can say, oh, I see you're at such and such a show. What are you looking to promote or exhibit there? You have another reason to get back into them to see what they're doing. So in terms of any of the goods, products and services you're selling to your potential customers, look at the activities they're doing. How can you help them to solve the problem? And so again, you may well have already pitched to them, but how can you add to that to make it work? So what I'd be asking you to do today is, when you're following up, go and look what exhibitions are on in your sector, and by looking at those, is there anything you can do to use it as some leverage for following up? You might want to go onto LinkedIn, you might want to share or comment on a prospect's post to say they're at such and such an exhibition. You can use this as a really good way to do some engagement. Now's the time to start doing it. You've really got a couple of weeks until you should really be firing on all cylinders and selling for all you're worth in those September, October, November times. They're really coming up. It's on the horizon. You need to be focused on that. Do some preparation now. Do some preparation to see what shows are on. Can you go to any of them? Great. But if not, how can you influence it in terms of leverage for engagement? So think really clearly in terms of that. What can you do and where can you do? So if you're selling B2B, absolutely. If you're selling B2C, you can also start to look at that as well in terms of that engagement with your audience. So if your audience are looking to go somewhere, how can you start to market to them as well? So if you're looking at B2C, you know, I know that Boardmasters Festival has just gone, and yes, that's a younger market, but there are certain festivals, certain events on, and things are now happening. So maybe your following up might be looking at remarketing or doing some Facebook advertising, doing some pin drops, and then obviously adding a pixel to it as well. So think about events happening. How can you utilize those to do your follow-ups?